When we think about some of these early conservationists, their vision was creating sort of refuges for themselves, for people like them, from a world that was diversifying, that was urbanizing, that was changing. And so 100 years later, I think it's really important to us to recognize that, like, the National Park Service was born in this moment of a sort of white ideology. Many of the founders of the National Park Service, the founders of the Sierra Club, sort of these big institutions in early conservation, they held a lot of sort of eugenicist and white supremacist ideals that they built into how they set up these institutions. In national parks, white visitors and higher income visitors are overrepresented in comparison to the general population. So it's really important to us to figure out ways to be more broadly relevant.
A study of national parks shows that minorities are underrepresented in attendance, with less than a fourth of participants being of non-white ethnicity. However, this issue extends far beyond national parks. Limiting factors such as cost, transportation, and education about the outdoors mean that minorities are simply less exposed to nature. One nonprofit organization in San Rafael, called Trips for Kids, is working to make outdoor experiences more accessible.
So one day, mountain biking up Mount Tam, I got to a point on a railroad grade where I could look across the city, and it just dawned in my head, hey, those kids and the people that I used to see there, how could I get them, to join these trips with me? My kids can do it, but how can we get them there? But these kids, and I knew, they don't have that opportunity.
Trips for Kids takes youth on mountain bike rides in outdoor locations. We work with local, county, state, federal parks all around the Bay Area, and we are bringing our bikes and our equipment to a trailhead, and we meet up with an agency who's bringing their own youth in their vehicle, and we meet together at the trailhead, and then we go for many hours of bike riding.
The kids come to us, they learn how to work on bikes, they earn points toward bikes of their own. We call it a job training program. It's not that they're going to go out and be bike mechanics, but they're going to learn just like they do in schools, too. You apply yourself, you get the points.
So I've made some friends, and the reason I joined here is because some of my friends where I live invited me to come. So I asked my mom if I could come, and she said, yeah, it's okay. So you clean up the shop or help on customer bikes or anything like that. Earn credits.
Unfortunately, a lot of our underserved youth are coming from these communities where the opportunities are simply not the same as higher income communities where wealth does allow for transportation, access to information, the ability to connect with resources that many of us that are in the middle, upper classes take for granted.
A lot of people don't really look for nature as escape. I feel like a lot is focused on different things that are not as important. Around bikes, there's a certain vibe that has always been consistent, and I think that has a certain feel of freedom. We live in a place that is that has a lot of different people from different cultures. So, I mean, assuming that they're not at their home and they're outside, they might be focusing on, I don't know, mischief, probably. I want to say that that's not the main thing, but that's perhaps the one thing I fear the most.
Time in nature, just by itself, reduces stress, anxiety, depression. That's measurable. Active time in nature kind of doubles the effect if you're walking or running. Active and mindful time in nature triples that effect.
Most of the time when I just come back from school, I just sit down and do my homework, and after I do my homework, I just sit down and I'm bored. So now that I'm in Trips for Kids, every time I just do my homework and I come to Trips for Kids.
We used to ask, and I'm sure they still do today, we'd have the kids raise their hands. How many of you have never been in this kind of setting before? And it would be usually more than half that have never been out of their city. You know, they might have been maybe in a little local park or something, and maybe not even that. So all they've seen is, you know, the concrete around them. So it's like with anything new, you're afraid of it, you know, and that's the job of Trips for Kids.
My mother lived in kind of like a secluded area, and everything was green at the time, and it was one of those places where you wake up in the morning and first thing you smell is pines. I find myself missing those times, you know, trying to recall that scent. And every time I go out with the kids, every time I go out by myself or with friends, I get to see it again. And it's almost like, it's like a throwback almost, you know? Like going back and seeing the whole thing again. It's like, whoa, this is cool. Like I almost forgot how good this felt. And I want for others to see that there's still a chance for you to see it.